to join the channel here or over on the subscribe star or the other links. So this is a bit tricky. This is movie. This is about a poll dealing with Disney Star Wars versus the original Star Wars, and it says you can guess what the poll results are. If you're over 40, the sweet spots for Star Wars is like 40, I think 45 to 65 ish. So if you're under 40, and if you're more female and you're more on the left, you're going to think that the Disney stuff was better than the original. And if you're over 40 and male and more on the right, you're going to think the 77 to 83 version was better. Okay, so that aspect tells you you could have guessed that. It tells you exactly what you think. Now the thing is, it's the last movie concluded in 2019. It's obviously 2023 today, and they haven't followed it up. They've gone to a streaming format, which is for at least compared. It's lower budget, at least compared to what they were spending on Star Wars, where even a streaming series that they spend like $200 million on is much lower budget when you compare it to like a big screen Star Wars plus advertising plus all the other stuff that goes into what would have been. You're talking about like a new trilogy would have been like $1.5 billion. They go, what do you mean? The movies, they did 9 movies, part of like the official trilogy. I don't know. 3 sets of trilogies, really. And then they did like Rogue One and Solo, but those weren't, people didn't think of those as part of the main story. Those were, and Rogue One was okay, and Solo was not okay, but it wasn't as bad as people seem to think it was. But you go, if the final movie concluded in 2019. And what Disney was planning on, I'm just reading their minds here, was if the Disney Star Wars had done well, 2015 to 2019, if the money had gone in the right direction, it had done well, it had found an audience. And this is kind of weird to say because the movies financially did do well, and the younger you are and the more left wing you are, like you want to defend Disney because it's kind of a youth versus old thing, left versus right thing. But the thing is, the profit was not going in the right direction. The first movie, and keep in mind, these movies cost quite a bit to make, plus the advertising. So the profit for the first movie was, I mean, not the profit, the net domestically was like 936. Second one was 620. By the third one, it had dropped down to 515, and the budgets for the production of the movies were going up and up and up. And so all 3 movies, yes, they all did make money, but you could see the direction the movies were going in. And so, if the movies had gone in the right direction and if it was finding an audience and the second and third one had done better, Disney would have, you would have already been working on the next trilogy before the third one. You would have probably started the next trilogy when you saw that the second movie was a hit. Because the first movie was a hit, $940 million domestically. But the thing is, everyone watched the movie, whether you're working for Disney or you study films or you're just a fan. You know that wasn't a good movie. That was not something you would stake future hands on. And people hear that and they look at the numbers and go, it did $940 million domestically. Yes, but follow the logic here, because you wouldn't start the next Disney trilogy with the new Luke Skywalker, whatever story direction you want to go in, just based on the first movie, because even the people who work for Disney were looking at that movie and go like, we know this isn't a good movie, and we know the reason it did 940 million domestically is because people over 40 who are familiar with the original universe, they just want to complete the movie before they die, before Harrison Ford, Carrie Fisher, Mark Hamill die. That's why it did $940 million, and it was not a good movie. And then the second one did 620, and it was a worse movie. And the third one did 515, and it was very bad. So Disney's not stupid. They see the direction of that, and like all of us who are over 40 see the direction of that also. And the movies, you're paying the money to see them, which over the 3 movies might be $50, just because you owe it to George Lucas, sort of, in your mind. Not exactly, that's the wrong thing to say. Because you just want to complete the series. And like Rogue One and Solo weren't part of the series, this is part of the series. You just want to complete the series, and you want to see it on the big screen. You don't want to go sail the high seas for it or wait for it to come out to stream. And you want to see it on the big screen like you saw all the others, even if the original 77 was a little before your time. That's why those movies did so well. But you saw the trend of those movies. So if they had gone in the other direction, by the time if the second movie came out and it had done like another $900 million. And also, it had been a good movie. It connected with, it found an emotional connection to the audience, which none of the Disney movies did. They were too much of this Bolshevik found family Frankfurt School type of concept of, hey, we got people from all around the world and they're all coming together because it's like it's better than having your blood tribe and abandon your own roots and come together for this. There's a lot of subtle undertext. To really go into it would be a kind of a long video, and I don't think it'd be good for YouTube. Doesn't like talking about that kind of those kind of bullshit concepts too much for some weird reason. Odd, really. But it didn't find an audience. It found money, but it didn't find an audience. It didn't connect with people. Like the Mary Sue character and the Rose Tico and the Finn and that the Spanish guy or the French guy, whatever his name was. Like I don't even remember the guy's name. It's like that's how memorable they were. None of that connected with people. If the movies were good and the second movie had also done $900 million and the merchandise sold, which is what Disney merchandise had not sold in terms of toys and T-shirts and coffee mugs. And but the thing is, if the second movie hit, then Disney would have started work on the next trilogy with Luke Skywalker, which in itself is its own tricky issue because you're sitting around the table with all these money people and you go, so is the next trilogy going to be a little blonde-haired Luke Skywalker? Because, you're sitting around talking about this 2017, like wokeness is off the charts by then. Or are we going to use a non-blonde haired character to play like the Luke Skywalker equivalent? And that's an issue because a three movie trilogy at that time, if it's going to be like big movies at the level of what Disney was working with, at a minimum for the next trilogy would have been movies 10, 11, and 12. At a minimum to cost would plus advertising would have been $1.2 billion at a minimum, and at a higher budget, it would have been more than that. It would have been like $1.8 billion just to make the movies. So Disney's looking at that, and they're looking at like the Luke Skywalker character, and they're saying like, so it's not going to be a girl. We're not going to do that again. But it's it's 2017, 18, 19. It might not be a blonde Luke Skywalker type of character. It might be a Pox or something. And they're sitting around, they know the numbers of what that kind of return would get, and they go, yeah, we're not gonna make the 1.2 billion back. We're not gonna turn a profit if we do that. But Disney's in the position of, oh, so we're gonna have to go back to a blonde-haired, blue-eyed character like the 77 Star Wars. But Disney doesn't want to do that. Disney are the globalists. They are this is a religion to them. So anyway, so that's why they're in that weird. It's kind of a nuanced, complicated talk, and none of it's politically correct to talk about. But the evidence is, I mean, yes, Wu-Flu had something to do with it, but the evidence is also like they didn't start working on the next trilogy in 2017, 2018, 2019 because of the direction that these movies were going in. They went from 900 to 600 to $500 million. If that's going in the wrong direction, and it's also because they were involving these woke things, like Disney's not stupid. They're following the Twitter conversations, the Phantom Menace. They know what people mean when they say woke and like there's too much diversity and these movies aren't finding an audience. And the left wing goes, yeah, but they made all this. They made so much money, $900 million, and even $500 million. It's like it still made $150 million profit. Yeah, but the direction of the movies is what's concerning them. And it's not just making a new movie, it's making a new trilogy, movies 10, 11, and 12, and who gets to be the antagonist? Do you go back to being a blonde-haired, blue-eyed Luke Skywalker and a Harrison Ford and a Carrie Fisher equivalent? Well, Disney doesn't want to do that. They want the Rose Tico and the Finn and the Spanish guy and then the Mary Sue character. But that didn't connect with that audience, but they own the rights to this property. They spent $4 billion for it. So Disney's in an uncomfortable position because the woke stuff didn't find an audience. That's just the cold, brutal reality. And it's kind of a left versus right, old versus young issue. So they went to the streaming model where they're not selling individual shows because Andor, Star Wars, and Obi-Wan, and Mandalorian, and whatever other shows they had out there, it's actually had like 4. They're all underperforming, but they're not selling individual shows. They're selling a subscription to a streaming product, and that's actually doing pretty well because it's just the totality of the shows on the bookshelf. If people see there's a lot there, they can sell the streaming, even if when they look at Mandalorian, they're not into it. And like none of the Andor Star Wars is not very good. None of the shows Disney is putting out, Disney Star Wars is putting out are very good, but the subscription stuff is still doing well. But they didn't follow it up with the next part of the trilogy, which if you pay $4 billion for Disney Star Wars, you should be printing money. You should be rotating that money printer as fast as you can, because Star Wars should be a huge name. And when you bought it in 2012 and when you came out the first movie in 2015, people thought you were going to knock it out of the park. And then they saw the 2015 version and go, oh, Star Wars, Disney got woke. And then people got on YouTube and the Phantom Menace came up and everyone's talking woke. And it seems that the movies are woke. They're not finding an audience. They look like Frankfurt School Bolshevik propaganda. You're just doing this checklist of how woke can we get. And the movie's not finding an audience. Like, it's not just me saying this and, it's like people hear the person criticizing these movies. But the point is, Disney didn't make 2019, when that last movie hit the screens, the final scene should have been a scene from the new trilogy that was already in production. It should have been a little blonde-haired, blue-eyed Luke Skywalker type of character. He's in a small village, and he's got to train to be a Jedi or something, and the saga continues. Whatever direction you want to go with it. But they didn't show you that scene in 2019. Like, in 2019, they knew when Disney followed that up, like, Disney knew the big screen Disney was over. Star Wars was over, because they can't spend $1.5 billion for another big trilogy and have it lose $500 million. Now, not that Disney could not afford, but the thing is, it's not just the loss of the film, or even if it broke even, which it probably would do. It's not just that. It's like the merchandise, like, oh, we're not selling any merchandise on this hypothetical films 10, 11, and 12. There would be nothing would sell, because it would be like more Finn, Rose Tico type of stuff. Like, just didn't find an audience. But it's reputational harm to Disney, and then the theme park ties in with it. And now we think of Disney now. You think of Disney as Disney's Star Wars is a dead brand, and Disney Marvels is a dead brand. But now people are looking at Disney and they're thinking, oh, it's like something to do with grooming kids in Florida and DeSantis, and Disney's getting kind of creepy, and it's becoming clear. The writing on the wall for Disney is becoming very clear. Like, Disney's not a family friendly company, and they're not making movies that you have any connection to. And they have not come out with this new trilogy, 10, 11, and 12. Which is weird, because they paid $4 billion for this property, and you would think, like, you would want to follow it up with 10, 11, 12 immediately. But they didn't. They went to a streaming model. And even the streaming model, like the Disney subset of the streaming model, is not doing well. Perhaps the old Star Wars, I guess, is doing okay. Maybe some of the animations. And Marvel, the old Marvel, is probably doing really well on streaming. But nothing new that Disney is bringing to the table on Star Wars is going to connect. And to be fair, I don't see anything with Marvel that's going to find an audience either. And the thing is, you can probably say the same for Warner Brothers and DC, because they're woke. The left hates that word, but I don't know what else you want to say. It's like, it's this Bolshevik like checklist of United Colors of Bennington. It's like you throw out a net in downtown LA and like there's your cast, but it's not finding an audience, and that's kind of the Stone Cold's bottom line. Anyway, like, comment, subscribe. See you guys on the next episode.